if Rahm Emanuel takes that position, it could not mean that the president is making his decision purely for domestic politics, because Rahm Emanuel lives, breathes, eats, and sleeps domestic politics. He couldn't possibly be favoring refusing that request if he thought it was bad politically. And by the way, I noticed that Rahm Emanuel is leaving a sinking ship at this point. So what do we have? I think once again, over and over in the Woodward book, there is a warning. If you don't give the crystal who you appointed on Gates' strong recommendation, if you don't give Petraeus what they want, who he had also put in office, Petraeus may resign, the crystal may resign, Gates may resign, and Mullen, the Joint Chiefs, just got reconfirmed in that position, and an advisor to Petraeus, Colonel McMaster. I think he's now a Brigadier General. Brigadier General McMaster wrote a book called Dereliction of Duty, and the point of that was, it was kind of a gutsy book for a guy in the military, active service, to write. The point of the book was the military were derelict in not pressing their case for the war in Vietnam. What they needed to win the war, they should have been willing to resign, they should have been willing to take their case to Congress and tell them to fight it in public. And I've been reading for years that McMaster was being very influential in the military, and now we're seeing the result. Petraeus and Crystal clearly fought that fight in the public. They leaked their proposals to Woodward in a way that no general ever did in Vietnam, not once. So in effect, we're getting something like a very obstreperous military here. Civilian control of the military, even in the most formal sense, is slipping away very significantly. There's an old quote, I think, by Gibbon to time and fall of the Roman Empire, that when the centurions maintained the Roman Empire began to elect their own leaders, that was the beginning of the end of Rome, and eventually they marched on Rome. We have military now who are taking on the president in a way that no military did in Vietnam. It's a difference. And the effect, though, even in Vietnam, was that Johnson, to keep them from resigning, had to give them enough, as I say, to cause these mass deaths. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. What the effect, now Obama is saying to Woodward and to the generals, I'm not going to give you any more, I don't want to hear any more requests, and I'm going to start withdrawing. What's the chance that he will say no next year when he wasn't able to say it this year as he faces an election? I think very small. But now it comes to us. Not zero. He has laid down a marker very strongly that he wants to cap it in Afghanistan and even to withdraw. The chances of his doing that are small, but not zero. And that depends, I think, look, we've got a small crowd here, but it does have the interesting characteristic of having at least some, I don't know how many other Republicans, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, how many other Republicans we have. There's no question that libertarians, who are a growing minority in this country, and a minority with whom I feel great affinity on the subject of foreign policy and civil liberties, and have for years. And I'm a big supporter of Antiwar.com, which represents that point of view, and also the point of view that a, quote, left-right coalition against war and against militarism is the way to go, and the only way to go. And I agree with that. And, Gorbachev came to power in 1985 with two perceptions. Well, the major perception that he had privately, at least, was this country, the Soviet Union, cannot go on as it is, spending what it is on military. And second, cannot continue the Afghanistan war. And it took him 4 years to get out of it, having that definite opinion. He was back bucking the KGB, which for whatever reason wanted to stay in, and some of his generals wanted to stay in. He finally got out in 1989, but after 4 years. But he was determined to turn the country around in military spending. He wanted to civilianize the economy, the Soviet Union. We need a Gorbachev. We do not have a Gorbachev. Obama is no Gorbachev, and they don't come along. That's not a terrific criticism of Obama. They're really very rare. Some people thought that Obama would be a very rare president. He isn't. He's a very ordinary president at best. It could be worse. It could be worse. And if we lose him to a Republican, I have to say, then probably will be worse. Bad as the Democratic Congress is, and they're really terrible. I don't disagree with any criticism almost that anybody of any stripe has made of the Democratic Congress, except that the Republicans offer, as far as I can see, much worse. So if you don't believe that, and if we get a Republican Congress in November, we'll all get a chance to see how it turns out. Many people will be very happy with that. But as it is, the prospect right now, with what amounts to a Cold War mentality, of which I was one 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 40. I was part of that. The same equivalent appears today. It's a militarist economy, a militarist society, a society that's very much accepting now of mass torture, still, really, and assassination as the key method. That's what Crystal stood for. And the leaders are not the only problem. The public, a large part of the public is part of the problem. We need to change the society. We need to convert from this military economy and society and mission in the world, and to move away. And that takes a very major change. There are a lot of people. We're a minority. We're a minority on the left. We're a minority on the right who want to do that. However, there's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. And I'll end by saying we have one point of leverage at this moment. Weak, I have to say this, weak as Obama has proved to be as a leader in refusing to stand up to the military, and I have to say that he faced a serious political problem on that. No one would have found that easy to do a 180-degree turn from his own prior stance on Afghanistan and say, it's not working, it can't work, I'm going to go in a different direction. It would have been very hard. I'm not sure that any president we've actually had, would have done that. But that doesn't mean it's good enough. You know, it's bad. However, he has taken a strong stand internally, and publicly, that he does not want to increase our involvement in Afghanistan. He wants to decrease it. So we do have one point of leverage there. It's not very powerful, but it's something. And that is to hold him to that. Hold him to that. There are some Republicans, not very many, I'm aware of, that might go along with that. There certainly are a minority of Democrats that definitely would go along with that. Or believe, for example, in pretty much the Progressive Caucus and the Black Caucus. And there's an out of Iraq caucus, or should be an out of Afghanistan caucus. There is a minority of Democrats that do that. We need to let that be known in the remaining months of this election and subsequently, and really take a very strong stand that we believe, joining hands on this issue, that we want to see Obama carry out his commitment and pledge not to increase our involvement in Afghanistan, but to move it down, to move toward negotiations now, not when we have achieved a position of strength, which will never, ever, ever happen in Afghanistan. But now is the time for general negotiations in that area, involving all the countries in the area, and move in a different direction, moving our society away from this, and find it possible to say no to the hawks, the militarists, the generals, civilians, and military in the society. Thank you.